Following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on a break!
With Nick Eatman, Brian Broaddus, Ambar Garcia, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Wednesday, June 7th, 2023, Season 19, Episode number 10. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. We are live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. We're presented by Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. This is our final show. Before we take a little break, I need a break, guys. And so we're going to take a little break here. We got about 6 weeks or so before we'll be heading to Oxnard, California for training camp and doing some new things, some different things. But we need a little time to kind of revamp and do some changes and move around some stuff. And so we'll do that. We'll take a little break and let you guys have a little bit of time to miss us before we head to training camp.
If you really want to, if you don't miss me, yeah, we have Love of the Star podcast you can listen to.
Y'all gonna keep going?
We're gonna
do this little
me
hiatus?
and Bobby, our little partnership we had. So I was able to mention that if I can. Thank you. But yeah,
I actually wanted to.
That's the way of him saying, some shows are quitting, but
we're
going to keep rolling.
For those that are giving up.
No. This show has a tradition of breaks.
Yes, we do. We always do it.
This is not something new, even when I was with you guys at DallasCowboys.com. But if you feel inclined, on a lot of these same platforms, it'll be Love of the Star.
I do want to say, this is just because I was talking to Amber. Like today is the day I give a big presentation to the Jones family about kind of our business and stuff like that. And so I wanted to point out something that, as a part of my research and getting ready for that presentation, I saw some numbers, and I have to thank our listeners because this show, Cowboys Break, we're in our 19th season now, but last year. We had another record year. We had 5.5 million downloads of our show across all platforms. By far the best that any podcast that the Cowboys have ever produced has done. Kudos to you guys, but also to all you folks out there that are listening, that listen to us in June when there really is no football other than kind of the underwear Olympics out there, and that are still listening, still dedicated to this show.
Well, also, this
we
was
appreciate
the
you guys.
first podcast you guys ever created, right?
No, actually the first one was a night. It was Talking Cowboys, but it was Nick and Mickey
Tuesday night at the ranch.
And then Nick walked off the show because he didn't feel like he was getting enough airtime. Literally walked off the show in the middle of the show, and then we said, well, maybe we need to start a new podcast.
It was 6:38. We started at 6:30. Mickey went for 8 minutes talking. Think about that.
No, really?
Two people's on the show, and one guy starts it off for 8 minutes.
Without even mentioning you or you even saying a word.
Eternity.
Yeah.
And Chris Beam, I think, was running it on the other side. I just walked off. I was like, and I think I came back later. I don't remember exactly. But, what are you going to do? 8 minutes? Come on.
You guys,
patience and me doesn't work together, and that is a long time for a show.
You guys out there might not know Nick personally. I'm guessing from being on the air, listening to him, you probably get the sense, and I will tell you for a fact it is true, that is so on brand for him. Like literally 8 minutes, he was just like, I'm not needed here. Take off my headphones and walk out.
You got to remember
that is a Nick
Eatman special.
Like I know. After a minute in, he'd probably be like, I'm done with this.
I have done a segment on radio where a guy I worked with talked for 18 minutes straight.
Oh.
18 minutes.
Oh, my God.
Really?
Who's the host? Why didn't the host shut that down?
It was the host.
My question. It was the host.
And it was when we were all doing radio and we didn't have sports and stuff like that, and it's tough. That's
2020?
Yeah, that was a tough year.
I hope we never go back to I hope all our social issues and stuff. I know they're not all going to go away, but there were times where, man, we were all going after each other here, and that was one of those uncomfortable times of doing not just that time, but just doing radio in general. I'm so grateful again for the fans that can listen to our sports commentary, because that's what we do best. Everything else, we're just kind of like probably over our heads, you know.
And me and Mickey are fine. There's no issues.
I was always wondering why Derek said, "Listen, you and Mickey ever want to do a show?" Mickey and I we go at each other. I have a lot of respect for Mickey.
No doubt.
I don't always agree with Mickey, but man, I'll tell you what, he will not back down.
No.
He will not.
And nor
back
should
down.
he. No should he.
He doesn't. I mean, one time, like I say, we went on break, and he was MFing me, and I was MFing him, and we came
people
back.
were dying to know all the insight on that.
That just
little...
no. This
Because it
platform
cut off right when it was like, hey, we're going to go to break.
Yeah, I was sitting right where Amber was, and he was there, and Rob Phillips.
Rob
Phillips
probably died.
Rob Phillips said, "Guys," and I looked at Rob and I said, "You shut the f up." And Rob goes. Rob did this. He did our thing where he just threw his hands up and said,
Okay,
all right,
I will."
And but to Mickey's credit, when we went back, when Beam says coming back. And we both went back into the show, but Mickey, he's a battler, man. I mean, he and I, like I said, I have a lot of respect for him. We just don't like each other, and we really don't. But I respect the man. I really
Put it out
do.
there. Put all your feelings
Didn't
out
think we were
there.
going there, but yeah.
Well, I think it's important. People know. I mean, they see me and Mickey, and Mickey's nice to me, and he says hello. I say hello back. I mean, but he ain't taking me to go eat pizza. It's okay, man. I respect the man. I really do, because he will fight your ass. He will fight you.
He definitely will. All right, well, let's jump in. We've got so many topics we're trying to hit today. As I said, this is our final show before we head to a little break. So we're going to continue. We have to finish up our 2023 offseason review. Today we're going to focus in on the secondary and the defensive line. Before we get to that, though, there were some news and notes that came out of the mini camp that's happening right now that I wanted to hit up on. Give me an injury update first, Nick, on Tony Pollard and Jordan Lewis. What do we know about them right now?
Well, Tony Pollard, there's been no setback there. This is just a guy that's coming off of a couple of injuries from the playoff game, and so he's going to continue to work with Britt Brown on the side. They sprinkle him in with some of the team stuff, because you got to remember, this is installation as well. So, and this is somewhat of a new offense. So yes, he's going to, he's not going to be left behind, but at the same time, they're just being smart with how they use him.
Yeah, that's what to me, that the history here, though, with the injuries and stuff like that. We've always learned this at OTAs, mini camps. It was, if you could see guys on cords working, you kind of had an idea that, okay, now let's see what happens at training camp. I think that's really the most important thing. The fact that when one of the first practices that we got to watch a couple weeks ago, that he was actually, as Nick mentioned, sprinkled in. Yeah. That was very encouraging to me. I'm like, oh, they're not holding him back right now. So, hey, as long as when we get to Oxnard, as long as all those guys are on the field stretching and practicing, I think that's the most important thing right now. But guys are coming off some pretty serious injuries, but it looks like they're going in the right direction as far as getting them back out there and getting them ready to go.
Jordan Lewis?
Going to be on PUP. And it's interesting when you interview or talk to the player, and then you talk to other people.
Happens sometimes.
The
like
player
that.
always is like, "I'm good. Yeah. I mean, I hate to go right now." And then, so he's going to go on PUP, and what that means, physically unable to perform. List.
It's funny, or vice versa, because you get some of the trainers be like, that person's good, and then the player's like, I'm not ready yet. So
it goes both ways. For sure. But starting on PUP, which is when they'll do it on the first day of training camp, they'll designate him. That's when you have to do it. He can come off of it at any time during camp. He still counts to the 90-man roster, but you have to put them there. So then when you get to the end of training camp, start of the regular season, if they want to move him to reserved PUP, that will remove him for 4 games. So and there's no coming off of that until 4 games. So that was the decision they made with Gallup last year. If you remember, Gallup went to PUP, stayed on it all year. All of camp, and then they took him off, even though he wasn't ready to play until I think the 3rd or 4th game.
Yeah, 4th game. Yeah.
4th game, right? So. They could have probably left him on there. It's just a decision that they have to make. But what that means to me is that Jordan Lewis is not ready to play anytime soon, because they know going into training camp he won't be there.
Yeah, that's and something new for us is also the rosters will stay intact for all through training camp. So there's no cut down until the very end.
Oh yeah.
So that's
there's no 85.
No. They're gonna play this thing. They got the three
First year they'll do that, yeah.
preseason games, and they're gonna carry this roster through. So a lot of these guys will get the opportunity, and then we'll have one final cut.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Great description on how the PUP system works here.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about a little bit of news that came from Stephen Jones earlier this week. He says he was talking
East-West
about
game?
No,
I'm excited about that. No,
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you're very excited. It's going to
Yeah.
be right here in Dallas. You don't have to travel.
Yeah.
But Stephen was talking about the extensions that are coming up, and there are a lot of players, and to me, an inordinately large number of players. Speaking to how well they've drafted, that will be coming up here due for some really big contracts over the next couple of years. He says that he's really seeking more than one extension before camp, so he's really putting it out there. He wants to get this done. Obviously, some of the players, according to him, may not be in as much of a hurry. My question for you, I have two questions. One is, which one do you think is most likely to get done, and which one do you think is the most challenging to get done? And I'm talking about Lamb, Diggs, Dak, Steele. You name any one of those. Any others you might want to throw in, but what do you think is the most likely to get done? What do you think is most challenging to get done?
The most challenging, I bet we could say together, is
Diggs.
I mean that's
Why?
Because okay, he's going to get paid. He wants to be paid as the highest paid corner in the league. And if you look at the money and you look at the guys, it's the guy from Green Bay,
Zaire Alexander,
and I believe Denzel Ward. I think those are the top two corners. Well,
Ramsey's still up in there.
Ramsey's up in the. I think those are the three that are 20 north.
Did he get a new deal with Miami?
Yeah.
He did?
Well, I don't know.
I think they moved around money is what they did. But at one time, he was one of the guys who started talking. Yeah.
Those three are the ones north of $20 million a year. Well, there's nothing that Trayvon Diggs has done that suggests that he shouldn't be in that group. So why not? He also has a brother in the league that's been through this kind of stuff, and I'm sure that he's not going to make it easy, nor should he. And I think that one's just going to be a little bit of a challenge to get both sides done there. And that's the one where the deadline is probably a little bit more pressing, because the longer this goes to this year, I mean, what if he has 3, 4, 5 interceptions early in the year? Then it's like the price tag is going to keep going up.
Right.
And right now, I mean, despite what he has done, and I think he's a very talented player and he's contributed a lot on the team, but there's also a lot of criticism that came out from last year and kind of the level or his lack of maybe not tackling properly or as much as he should or how he should. So I think that plays into the Cowboys' advantage maybe, but we know that Trevon Diggs, he has that kind of personality where he's confident about what he can bring to the table. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers like Nick was talking about, Jair Alexander is over $21 million a year. Denzel Ward is at $20 million a year. Ramsey's still at $20 million a year. Marlon Humphrey at $19 million. Marshawn Lattimore at $19 million, and Xavier Howard from the Dolphins at $18 million. So that's kind of that's your starting point right
22.
There. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would think. If I'm the agent, that's what I would do.
Well, the thing about it is that you don't have that fifth-year option to play with here. You can play with the tag. I don't know what the new tag numbers are for corners. That's obviously going to go up, especially with everybody, the top guys making, north of $18 million. So, yeah, this is going to be a tough one. The one I think that gets done is Dak. I think that's the one that gets done because I think that, and this is just me, guys, I ain't talking to anybody in the organization. I think the way we've seen how Todd France wants to negotiate, he wants to keep the contract short so he can get his guy back to the table in a short amount of time. So, I would anticipate maybe, 3 years, something like that, some type of an extension, get his guy back to the table pretty quickly if he can as the contracts continue to go up. That's the one I think the Cowboys have to take care of first because that's the massive cap hit that they're looking at right now. But Todd France is not a fun guy to deal with. He fights tooth and nail for his guys, and rightfully so. And the Cowboys understand that. They've done this before. They've been through this dance. I think the Dak one will be the one they need to work on. Diggs would probably be the next one, and they've got a little time for CD. But I wish they could have had a way where they could have staggered these contracts a little more. It seems like they're all hitting on the books, and that's what you do when you draft really well.
Yeah,
these contracts hit all at the same time, and that makes it a little bit difficult. But Adam and those guys are good at doing this.
And as soon as you get those guys done, those three, and you're like,
here comes the mess.
Put your feet up. Yeah. Here comes the lion.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's going to be, I mean,
they know that, and it's funny because you're thinking about where would you play Parsons? Is he an edge or is he a linebacker? And you start to think about the money.
His agent's going to be like, "Oh, he's an edge."
Well, you ask people in the organization, that I know, and it's like they know. They don't. It doesn't matter.
Right,
you pay the guy.
Right.
That's that. Well,
it's hard to say it when you got a guy that's a defensive player of the year candidate legitimately.
Yes.
Almost every year he's been in the
every
league.
year.
So
every year.
you just got to pay that.
You're
guy.
right. He's not going up against other edge linebackers.
They
it's
know
the best defensive players in the league, and he should be.
That's exactly right.
It's not like there's any question. It's like they know what they're up against right now, and in a good way. It's great to have players that are great.
Yeah,
it's better than paying players that aren't great, which a lot of teams have gone through their
The question is just how do you move money around for him? Like how do you make that all work with your salary cap?
That's where you get
that's
the
where it
quarterback.
gets really.
That's where the quarterback's
really
got to come in and kind of we got to get the quarterback done.
Yeah.
Well, see, to me, I would think CD sounds like a pretty given thing that you would make it, because you currently don't have anyone who would be his quote unquote successor, like who's gonna take up that role. You don't, and you just made him your number one receiver just last year. So I would imagine that's a pretty, I don't know on his end and his camp what they're trying to do. Obviously, you try to get the best money, the best amount of money possible. But I think for the Cowboys, I don't see any. Why do you extend that as far as like timing and getting that done?
If I give you Terry McLaurin from the Washington Commanders as the benchmark,
he's farther down the list though, right? As far as like
I'm giving you a starting point.
Yeah,
$23 million
a year.
A year, yeah.
McLaurin,
and I want to say he's like fifth or sixth in the league.
Actually, it's Tyreek Hill at 30.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams at 28, Cooper Kupp at 26.7, A.J. Brown at 25, Stephon Diggs at 24, DK Metcalf at 24, Deebo Samuel at 23.8, and now you have Terry McLaurin at 23.
See, I think you're going to have him up. I honestly think
he's going to be high.
He's going to be starting at 26, 27. That's where his agent's probably going to start there.
He's somewhere between Cooper Kupp, A.J. Brown, and Diggs, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's hard to argue that he's not worthy because, as we talked about last week, he is a legitimate top 5 receiver in the NFL.
I mean, McLaurin's got like 3 catches against the Cowboys in like 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean that we've seen him, and that kind of goes.
That's
to
a
the other
third-round
guy.
pick, though, right there too.
McLaurin.
Yeah, he didn't make any money. He's very similar to what Dak's situation was, where he was drafted like third round, and then all of a sudden he went all those years of playing on low salaries, and now he's like, either you pay me or I'm going to walk out of here.
Yeah.
And they're like, we'll
McLaurin, he's tough, and I know they doesn't have a quarterback situation like they want there, but he's one of those guys that averages about 70 or 80 yards a game. And
Christian Kirk in Jacksonville got $18 million a year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Think about that.
Yeah.
I would say this: if McLaurin had better quarterback situation throughout his career, I think he'd be talked about every bit as much as those top 5 receivers in the NFL. He has that kind of ability to do what he's done with the quarterbacks he has. I think says a lot.
I haven't looked at CD's contract that close, but it jumps from like, I want to say like $6 million this year to 17.
Yeah, because he
next
got
year.
The tag. The
fifth year
option.
So if he plays on that, they're already kind of factoring that in right now. I mean, Diggs' jump is going to be massive.
Your first really $17 million player is Mike Evans at 16.5.
He's on the down.
And then Tyler Lockett is at 17.3. And then now we got Kirk and guys like that.
Yeah,
so,
you're right there. He's 26, 27.
That's where it's going to start, I would assume, for his age, if it's not starting higher than that.
Yeah.
And so then it's going to be a negotiating back. And so that's the tough part. It's hard to argue that any of these guys we mentioned shouldn't get a deal, and it shouldn't be in the range of those top players. It's just a matter of how does Dallas, where do they fit in that top range, and how do you structure the contract so that when they all hit, you're not just completely in cap hell.
Yeah.
Which this might be an unfair question. Which of the groups that I just went through, the wide receiver numbers or the cornerback numbers, were the most shocking? And I mean shocking in like, man, paying a guy.
Actually, it would be wide receiver for me because I would think those two positions would match up comparably. Like what you would pay for your top receiver, you'd probably pay a similar amount for your top, or maybe even a little bit more for your cornerback, because I think it's harder to find great cornerbacks than maybe it is to find great receivers, especially in today's NFL. So I would have thought the premium would be a little higher on cornerback. To think that the top cornerback was 23 and the top receiver's 30, that to me is somewhat shocking.
Yeah, but I look at it from the cornerback standpoint of the guys there, and I know it's different when you don't play, like fantasy football factors in, because you kind of know who the studs are and receivers. Corners not the same. But still, when I look at those names, we know the league. We study these guys, or we watch them. Those names don't jump out to me as $22, $23 million a year. Guys, that's the market. That's what it is. But, I mean, even Diggs, as Amber just said, Diggs is going to be maybe the highest. And he's got some flaws in his game that people love to point out. I don't think they're that big.
Is it easier, though, to point out those flaws in a cornerback than it is in a receiver? Because you think about it like this. A receiver has 4 or 5 catches in a game, and if one of them's a touchdown, they had a great day.
Yeah.
Out of all the snaps they had 4 or 5 really great moments. For a cornerback, they could have great coverage all day, give up 1 touchdown, it's a horrible day, right? So it's like you can point out the flaws of a cornerback a lot easier than you can point out the flaws of a wide receiver.
And that's what happens. But I look at those names and I get a little surprised that they're at that range.
Is there anybody on this team that you could say that you feel good enough to let a receiver or a corner walk? I think you're better protected at corner if you wouldn't you feel like that?
I don't even want to entertain this conversation.
Letting them go.
I do not want. There's no scenario where I think for the Cowboys it's a good idea. No. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying there's no scenario for me as a bystander that's watching the Cowboys that has an interest in wanting them to win would want them to let either Lamb or Diggs go. You better figure out something else. If you got to let somebody else go, Lamb, Diggs, and Micah, they better be here.
Yeah, I've seen Larry Brown have success when Dion was on the other side, and I think when you have star players here, you can elevate the play of others. And so doing whatever I can, and if that means that you have to play a lot more of the Deron Bland types and next year's rookies and all that, you deal with it. Because
and they can draft. We know they can draft.
They can't draft. That's the thing about it.
Hold on, that could be the reason why that could be your argument of why you don't, though. Well, because they can draft.
Yeah, but that's also part of it. Like, because you can draft, I can have a top-heavy roster. I can have 4 or 5 guys that make the bulk of the salary, and I'll draft and fill in my depth because I'm good at drafting. That's the way I look at it.
Well, the thing about it is, one of the positions we were talking about was receiver, and now there's questions about Tolbert. That's a draft.
Yeah.
So now you're sitting there thinking, if Tolbert would have been or Gallup would have been, now you're thinking, okay, if one of these guys walk, I feel better that if Diggs walked, I would feel better about playing Bland than I would maybe playing Gallup or Tolbert right now in his place.
Yeah.
I get that point. And replacement value, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Neither one of them is going anywhere before 2025 or 2020. 2024 season, because they will franchise tag Diggs if he can't get done, and CD's already under contract. And Dak is under contract as well too.
Right. So this is a future problem, somewhat future problem. But at the end of the day, I don't see a scenario
Rico Dowdle might be running the ball, but
where those players are not on this team. I don't want to see that.
Would you take a swing? Can we do this? Would you take a swing and go ahead and try and get Parsons done?
Now?
You can't now.
Can you? I don't know. I'm trying to think.
I thought he has to be 3 years in the league, unless they've changed that. I think he has got to be 3 seasons.
I know that. I think you're right. But that's why I asked the question.
When you said that, it just hit me. This dude's only been in the league 2 freaking years.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're right. You can't. He's got to wait one more year.
Yeah.
This time next year, when we're having the break in June, we can talk about But to me, if you could though, if he was eligible,
start it.
I'd go right now.
Sure, me too.
I'd just go right now and try. Everybody else, you're kind of like, I'm sorry, we're going to work on this one first.
That's also part of it. Like, I do wonder if the point of Stevens' comments was to basically say it's kind of like and I don't want to make this analogy, but I'm going to make this analogy. It's kind of like when you have a group of people that all get in trouble, and the police are talking to them. They're like, "We're only giving one deal here.
Yeah.
So whoever jumps in first and it's willing to snitch on everybody else, you're going to get the deal."
They did it with Jalen Smith. I mean,
It's like
they'll tell you they're open for business. But we have to agree on business.
Yeah.
We're open, but we have to agree on it.
And whoever jumps in first may get the best deal. So jump in now.
Jalen was smart in that because
He did. He went.
He knew.
He saw what was happening.
He knew that he didn't have it anymore, and he went. He kind of got to the Cowboys before they got to him.
Yeah.
And that when we're like, wow, everyone was surprised by that deal because I think deep down, even though he made a Pro Bowl the year before, he knew that
Now's the time to strike.
leg and the knee was not where it should be.
Well, at the very least, he knew this is the best it's going to get. I'm coming off a Pro Bowl year.
Get it.
Even if I stay at this level, I'm not going to be better than that necessarily.
He also knew the organization was growing tired of dealing with Zeke, and why not go in there and get some good news? Get some news.
Smart businessman.
About Dak, real quick. I kind of forgot his whole situation. It's in the deal as far as like you apply the extension and this is the amount, or is there some type of negotiation that needs to happen again?
They're gonna have to negotiate because of his cap number. They're gonna have to extend it to bring the cap number down.
I think there's an option that he could void. I think it's a void. I mean, I that's one of the things I need to get a little bit better about. knowing. I mean, obviously it's something that's there, but it's like it's not like it's an expiring contract. It's got to be something that they.
The cap guys love it when we talk about the cap. You know, they just love that. We sit there and recklessly speculate on things like I do.
You're wrong.
Yeah,
you don't know.
Like they're like, Brian, why would you say that, Brian? You know, that kind of thing.
All right, our producer, I'm sure, is losing his mind over there. We've gone basically 2 segments without our break. So we're going to take a break right here. We're going to come back. We're going to dive a little bit into the 2023 review. We'll talk really quickly about the defensive line and the secondary. We'll be back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Hey, honey, can we talk?
Of course. What's up?
Well, I just thought you should know I've been curious about the new Dr. Pepper strawberries and cream.
Have you felt this way a long time?
No, I just think I'd really like the taste of Dr. Pepper, swirled with layers of flavor.
If you feel that way, I think you should try it, babe.
It's amazing. I mean, you're amazing too.
New Dr. Pepper strawberries and cream. The new flavor you deserve.
Want to use the Cowboys locker room's favorite products? Check out the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. Right now, you can get the Jack Black Playmaker, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The Playmaker includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized Intense Therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word Cowboys. The Jack Black Playmaker, $10, free shipping.
Hey, Cowboys fans, ready to spice up your next watch party? Bring Yo Quiero guacamole and be the game day hero. Yo Quiero means I want, and we know you want great, fresh-tasting, ready-to-serve guacamole for your home gating and tailgating events. Made with real avocados and the perfect blend of spices, it will be the star of any party. You can find us at your local Albertsons or Tom Thumb in the deli section. If you can't find it, talk to your store manager and tell them, Yo Quiero guacamole.
Back to the break.
Register now for the 2023 Dallas Cowboys Youth Camps presented by Invisalign. Athletes ages 6 to 16 are invited to learn from the best this summer at AT&T Stadium or Ford Center at the Star. Use code CAMPS23 to get $25 off registration. Visit DallasCowboys.com/camps.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break, live from SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. The segment presented by Blockchain.com. All right, so we're going to roll through the defensive line and the secondary. I'm going to just ask the simple question.
I got more cap questions in case you want to.
Okay, good. I got to ask the simple question. Are they better, worse, or the same? Let's start with the defensive line. After the changes that have been made, are they better, worse, or the same?
Defensive line.
Better.
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 Yeah.
Wow.
Better. They re-signed Hankins and Mozzie, and that's what I think. And I think, to me, you kind of understand now what I think Osa's going to be on the rise. I believe that you're also talking about Sam Williams being on the rise. I'm fascinated by what they're going to do with Chauncey Golston, believe it or not, at defensive tackle. I think they've got some plans and some ideas for these guys, so I think they're better on the defensive line now.
Anytime you can go with a first-round pick, a defensive tackle, that's a spot that they typically don't address that high. But they, by doing that, obviously they feel like he can just add some strength right in the middle of that core of the defensive line. So yeah, I say better.
Exactly what they said. You still have all your core guys, your main guys, main starters that you need, and that have made what the defensive line has been. But then on top of that, you add a first-round pick like Mozzie, a guy that physically he feels like he's ready to go and just where he needs to be. There's no more weight needed to be put on, and I think he'll be a great impact this year.
If there was one weakness from this unit last year, it was, and really the last couple of years, it was the run defense. It actually was better, in my opinion, last year than it was the year before with the added addition of Hankins. That being said, if you had to identify one potential weakness or at least a question mark for you right now on the defensive line, what would it be?
That's a good question because, and I'll think about it quickly, but when they didn't have Hankins, they didn't have anything in the run defense, and that killed them. They got Mozzie, that takes care of that. Mm-hmm. What if Sam Williams is not as good as what we think he's going to be? Now, they could fall back. They could say, whoa, Brian, they got Dorrance Armstrong.
Right, they got guys.
But you also are hoping that Sam Williams is everything and more. I think Dorrance Armstrong's a good player. I like what he's done the last couple of years. I think he's gotten better under this defensive staff. But, man, if Sam Williams can come in here and hit the home run and just take that right defensive end position over, then this defense got a chance to be really good.
Yeah, I think for me, and as great as he is, Micah Parsons, he's outstanding there. But they got to make sure that the teams aren't spending all off season figuring out, okay, when they put him at outside or as defensive end, this is how we're going to attack it. Philly did a good job. There's some other teams that did a good job there. If I'm in the NFC East, or even if the Cowboys are on the schedule, I'm spending a lot of the offseason going, this is how we have to attack and neutralize him. So I think that's going to be something the Cowboys have to offset as well. It's not just pin your ears back. It's not always 3rd and 9. Sometimes it's 3rd and 5. And he's got to make sure, because that's why he's bulking up a little bit. So that right there is the key. I mean, he is an outstanding player, there's no doubt. But they got to make sure that they keep making him on the attack and not where teams can kind of neutralize him.
I can't think of any weakness. I'm sorry, like right now, because if this guy isn't as good, for example, that same theory can be applied to every other position on the team. But right now, I feel like if someone is maybe not performing as they should, there are enough guys to pick up that slack and just make up for it. So I feel pretty confident about the defensive line this year. I'm freaking excited about it.
Yeah, and just I'm looking at the roster right now, and I should have said this to start the jump. If Osa, I think, is going to be really, really good. Okay, Neville Gallimore, kind of an off year last year. I mentioned Golston. What happens if something with Osa doesn't work out, or he's not able to play? Who is that 3 technique? Who is going to be the 3 that steps up? And the 3 is the guy that plays on the outside shoulder of the guards there. So do they have the depth at the 3? It's veteran guys. It's Gallimore. It's Golston. But could Gallimore or Golston be that starter? Gallimore was a starter at one time, but it seems like he went to the doghouse last year. People were jumping over him, for opportunities and reps. So maybe the depth at the 3 might be in question at that point.
They're always overlooking Isaac.
Alarcon?
Mm-hmm. Moving to D-tackle. We have a story coming up on the website on that, too. He's excited about it. He'll probably be on Somos as well.
Well, the situation with him is that, here's a guy that, probably played a lot of scout team and played some defensive line and, was over there like jumping in, filling in, and coaches see something. And you know what? Those coaches on the defensive side do a great job of taking guys and using them for their skill. and saying, oh, well, hey, maybe this guy does have a little bit. That's nothing wrong with moving a player over. And if the player's excited about the move, that's half the battle right there.
And Dan Quinn was excited about it. Dan Quinn was like, he's the one that I think that kind of spearheaded this.
Yeah, he had mentioned in an interview that he had heard it was Dan Quinn who kind of started pointing him out and said, hey, let me take him, bring him over. And for a guy like, I have the most respect for Dan Quinn and I love him. So for a guy like him to say that he wants you to come over his side, that says a lot.
And I've said this before. They're going to lose the roster exemption with him this year. So there's not 91 players. It's just 90. And if he goes to the practice squad, it'll be just
on his own accord.
16.
Yeah.
But if you think about it from what Brian just said, he will be he's going to be a defensive tackle. But then when they work on scout team for defensive tackle,
he plays offensive tackle.
Line. So it's almost like two guys in one.
Yeah.
If he can do that
for the role that he has.
That's the perfect practice squad player.
Exactly.
Yeah, no doubt.
The perfect practice squad.
So they're
guy.
losing their exemption, but they're getting it back if he can do both things.
Yep. All right, we're going to go ahead and take our final break. We'll come back. Let's talk about the secondary. We'll do that when we come back. It's DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Want to use the Cowboys locker room's favorite products? Check out the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. Right now, you can get the Jack Black Playmaker, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The Playmaker includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word Cowboys. The Jack Black Playmaker, $10, free shipping.
SeatGeek has your back no matter what kind of fan you are. So whether you're a diehard fan or a don't really care fan, a we got 'em next time fan or we'll never win again fan, a here for the tailgate fan or a first one through the gates fan, SeatGeek not only makes buying and selling tickets easier than ever before, they made just about everything else easier too. So whether you're a here every week fan or haven't been here in years fan, SeatGeek has you covered. Download the SeatGeek app today. SeatGeek, your ticket to great seats.
Hey, honey, can we talk?
Of course. What's up?
Well, I just thought you should know I've been curious about the new Dr. Pepper strawberries and cream.
Have you felt this way a long time?
No, I just think I'd really like the taste of Dr. Pepper, swirled with layers of flavor.
If you feel that way, I think you should try it, babe.
It's amazing. I mean, you're amazing too.
New Dr. Pepper Strawberries and Cream. The new flavor you deserve.
Back to the break.
Sad thing is,
the CONCACAF Gold Cup returns to AT&T Stadium on Saturday, July 8th. One ticket grants you both quarterfinal matches. Don't miss your chance to get tickets. Visit SeatGeek.com, the official ticketing provider of AT&T Stadium.
Welcome back. It is the final segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. It's our final segment before we take a little bit of a hiatus. So let's talk about the secondary. I want to start first looking at the secondary. And my first question for you, when I look at the whole group, is does the addition of Gilmore slow the progress of Bland? Bland was, I think, a very large bright spot for this team last year. He was a young guy that was drafted a little bit later, but played really good football. Do you think this slows his progress as a player?
Yes, and a good thing. I mean,
in what way?
That's okay. I mean, there's progress stopper sounds like a bad thing. There's a lot of guys whose progress is getting stopped. But, Jalen Tolbert's progress is getting stopped by the addition of Brandon Cooks. But guess what? If you would have had a better rookie year, we wouldn't have had to get Brandon Cooks.
But Bland did have a good rookie year.
He had a good year. But then again, Jordan Lewis's injury is going to allow Deron Bland to play a lot. I mean, I think Deron Bland might even be the better guy anyways for the slot. So I don't know if it stops his progress as much. Stop some of those other cornerbacks that are drafted in the second and third round 2 years ago. I think it stops their progress. Nashawn Wright, Kelvin Joseph, but not so much Bland because I do think he's got a role.
Yeah, I think that the thing with Bland is that, to me, if they're going to play him let him learn the nickel. Let him learn that slot position because that could be super valuable. The more experience he gets working in that area, like I say, if you got Gilmore and Diggs, and just let him focus on nickel, then all of a sudden when it becomes his time to be a starter, say Gilmore moves on, Bland now he's played at a high level at nickel slot. He now can play on the outside. Man, I think that's just better for him as the development of because you play that you find a way to play that nickel slot and you do it well, you can stay in this league a long time doing that.
Well, I know that during OTAs, we saw him moving around and playing on the outside and also on the inside, and I think that's a really good thing. He looked pretty good on both, and I think that just develops him even more. I don't think. It always sucks in that aspect when you bring a veteran in because it does take away from them, but also you got to look at the positives and like what that veteran can bring as far as knowledge. We've seen it with a lot of veterans that come in here and they start teaching the younger guys things that they know and have experienced, and that becomes a really good impact for them. So I think it's actually a good thing, and I don't think he's, as of right now, he's still progressing, and I don't think it's going to be a problem.
You can't have enough corners. We went through this last year. Remember late in the year when we were talking about me going out there and playing, some of them games. I mean, you've got to have enough guys. You just have to.
So assuming that Diggs, Gilmore, Bland are your top three, knowing that Lewis is likely going to start camp and be on PUP for I don't know how much time, but obviously start there. Who's the next guy? Because when you start thinking about these cornerbacks, you got guys like Kelvin Joseph, Nashawn Wright, Eric Scott even. I've heard some people talk about him. Yeah. Who's the next guy, and who should be really, really concerned heading into training camp, knowing that if they don't produce and have a great camp, they could be on the street?
Kelvin Joseph should be concerned by that. Just when you watch the practice and kind of see who's doing what and where and all that. Now, what helps him is the fact that he was a really good player on special teams. When he's not having penalties, he's really good on special teams. And they lost some core guys on special teams last year. So if that's your role, that's your role. And yeah, you can justify the second round pick, and that doesn't make sense for just being a special teams ace, but you better be damn good at it. And he made a play in the 49ers game where he forced that fumble that should have led to a touchdown. It did not, but I'm just saying that could have changed the whole game and season there. So if he's not going to play a lot of corner, he better master that special team spot.
I think you got to look at Nashawn Wright though too. His situation stuff. He kind of needs to figure some things out there. Joseph. I think Joseph, the move to safety. I think that's the direction they're going to go with him. I just feel like though, we'll see with Nashawn Wright. That was one of those that can he have a good enough camp to where he puts himself in the picture with the rest of these guys?
I think the wild card in this whole secondary is Mukwamu.
Yeah,
because he has a skill set that former corner
can play both.
Yeah. And you got Donovan Wilson, you got J-Ron Kearse, you got Malik Hooker, and two of those guys they're up with their contract next year. Right. So maybe Mukwamu's going to play some safety after that, but we saw in that one playoff game where they had a role for him, Mukwamu, and I think Mukwamu is a guy that's going to factor into this.
And are you saying he could make all of them
just
a little more expendable?
Because when you get to your backup corners and safeties, the guys that do both, I mean, instead of taking 5 and 5 to the game, if you can take 4 and 4 and then one dual threat, that's 9 that you take to the game, but really you're taking 10.
Well, there's been a lot of praise being thrown onto Eric Scott now. And just because of where he's lining up. So the spotlight's on Eric Scott.
Where's he lining up, just for clarity?
Well, is a corner. As a corner,
but higher in the depth chart.
Yeah, they have the junior varsity practicing on one field and the varsity, and occasionally it's rare that you see a junior varsity player going down to the varsity field and getting work. And Eric Scott's the one guy that they seem to have thrown into the mix as Schoonmaker before he was a little banged up. He was practicing on the varsity field with the ones, and now Eric Scott's getting opportunities to get some.
And where's Kelvin Joseph?
Kelvin Joseph is he's kind of down on the
right.
But those are the things I think that as we again head into training camp, those will be the kinds of storylines that we will be following, and you will be able to notice based upon how they're utilizing guys, what their thoughts are on the guy's ability and where they think he falls on the depth chart.
I mean, C.J. Goodwin's not playing corner, but he does special teams real well.
Right.
So if Kelvin Joseph, hey, if that's your role,
kill it.
Kill it.
That's absolutely right. All right, real quick, before we end the show, I did want to bring up one topic that I thought was interesting. This goes back to our news and notes that we were talking about earlier in the show. The Cowboys all but dismissed the possibility of DeAndre Hopkins coming here. He is now a free agent after he was let go by the Cardinals. That being said, do you agree with that assessment, or do you think the Cowboys really should give some thought to bringing him to this team?
I don't think there's a.
So we can talk about it, right? He's free. Right?
He's free.
Okay.
He's
Now
free.
you can.
You can say his name as much as you want, Brian.
I wouldn't.
We can give you 5 minutes to just talk about Hopkins.
I wouldn't do it. I think that and we said this, I think, last week, Odell Beckham's contract is sitting there. I think he's going to want something in the neighborhood of that. The money we talked about, all these other guys, it just doesn't seem like it would be a fit. If he comes here right now, yeah, he's better than Gallup. There's no doubt he is. But I think for the roles and everything, I think everything's really defined. I think it clouds it up a little too much. You get a great player. He's going to be expensive. It clouds up your offense a little bit. I don't think that's the best fit for him or the Cowboys.
They're looking at a situation right now where Odell Beckham basically set the market for not even playing a whole year.
Yeah.
Got $15 million for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Cowboys are interested in that at all.
Especially with all these deals coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, you've heard it from the Cowboys. You've heard it from Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, Mike McCarthy. The way they've spoken about it sounds pretty clear that they're not, because sometimes they leave it kind of up in the air, but it sounds very clear that they're not really looking to go that route. And what's crazy, like Hopkins to me was the first wide receiver that I watched. Not the first, I guess the first that I was so impressed when I started watching NFL.
Yeah.
I remember watching him, and I'm just like, oh my God, who is that guy? That's when I first started, and I was a big fan of his, and he's so talented, and I think he can still bring a lot to the table for sure. Yeah. But does the money?
They got their guy Cooks.
Yeah.
They wanted Cooks last year at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Houston couldn't make it happen. They got their guy. I think that they're set with their room right now. They're trying to. I'm not trying to protect Tolbert, but they're letting Tolbert have an opportunity to see if he can make it or not. Yeah. And I think that's why they didn't address in the draft wide receiver until the very last pick.
Yeah.
They're going to see if Tolbert can play or not, and if he can, they'll be fine. If they're not, then they'll adjust with whatever they have to do.
Frankly, if he were free when free agency was going on before the Cowboys signed Cooks, I think we'd have a lot more to discuss on which one you take between the two, because they're both very good. They have different skill sets, and then you could talk more about who best fits this offense. But I think the decision's already been made. Cooks is here. Yeah. I think you just can't afford to do what you would do to have both of them.
I think running back would be addressed before receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if running back is addressed, maybe with a bigger name or not. But that would make more sense to me.
Zeke coming back?
He's a big name. I don't think he is, honestly. Jerry keeps saying the door's not. I think it's just that old.
I thought you were leading us to the water.
No, I don't y'all just think running back? I mean, like.
It makes sense.
When I look at it, I just don't think Ronald Jones and Malik Davis are going to be the next guys.
If I felt better at one time about Malik Davis, then all of a sudden he doesn't play at all in that 49ers game, and I'm like going, something happened there. Yeah. If Malik Davis plays in that game and he's able to get like 50 yards rushing on 6-7 carries or something, then I'm thinking like they got a guy here, and I think they do. I like Malik Davis, but something happened between the end of last season and where we are right now. New coaching staff basically on the offensive side of the ball, maybe a fresh approach for him. Keep an eye on him. I think he's a good player.
Yeah, I will tell you this, Nick. If you think about it from the running back position, we keep hearing over and over there needs to be an increased use of the running game. And at the same time, I think the running game, particularly the running back position, is probably a position where you have more questions about than any other position on the team. So if you think of it from that perspective, I could see where you're going there. And then you would think at some point they are going to do more. They have to do more because there's just too many question marks there. But I could also see them going into camp, seeing how camp goes, and then if they feel like they got to make a move, trying to make a move at that point rather than doing something soon.
If you really just think there's somebody out there, go get a free agent, whatever, just know this. Of all the free agents that are out there, the guys that are established, that have played, that are not on a team, the one that is the most productive and the youngest is Zeke. So that just goes to show what he's the youngest of all of them, and he's got definitely the
So
most
as much
yards.
as I don't think he's coming back, I could see a scenario that makes sense for them.
All I'm saying is that if that's not going to happen,
the employer strikes again.
No, I'm just saying. I don't know. Let's just see if there's something else that happens with another team. I just don't think if they're going to make a splash, they'll make it at running back more than they'd make it at receiver.
All right, appreciate you guys joining us. It's been a great offseason. We've had a lot of fun. We're going to take a little break. We'll be back as soon as we get to training camp. We'll be on the air. We'll be doing shows live from California. Can't wait. It'll be a fun season. Till then, for Nick Eatman, Brian Broaddus, Amber Garcia, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?